we will move to question time, and I call Senator McGrath.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The Albanese government's taxpayer-funded Talkfest last week has produced nothing but suggestions for new and higher taxes, including a spare bedroom tax, removing capital gains tax exemptions from the family home, a wealth tax, an increase to the GST, higher taxes on super and a business training tax. Given the Treasurer has consistently said nothing is off the table, but the Prime Minister has said he won't introduce any taxes not taken to the election, will the Prime Minister rule out new or increased taxes during this term of parliament?
Minister Wong.
Well, thank you, President. And if I may take one of the interjections, it is clear that the opposition hasn't learnt, and I would remind Senator McGrath, if he is interested in taxes, that he was part of a party that went to the last election with higher personal income taxes, higher taxes on the resources and manufacturing sector, higher taxes on motorists, and higher taxes on the higher housing construction industry. But all of a sudden, Senator McGrath, who is someone who I think says he believes in smaller government, despite the fact that he was part of a party that proposed many higher taxes for Australians at the last election, is now worrying about taxes. Well, Senator, we have been very clear. We have put an agenda before the Australian people at the last election, which was about lower taxes for Australians. You opposed it. You opposed it. So I think everyone in this country knows which is the party that is prepared to actually reduce taxes for working Australians, and which is the party that went to an election very clearly saying we want higher taxes. So no amount of scaremongering now, which is precisely what this is, and I think we all know it, no amount of scaremongering now can hide the fact that the coalition has been the party of higher taxes, and they remain that to this day. I know that is an unusual state of affairs in Australian politics, but that is where the coalition have got to. That is where the coalition have got to. They are the high-taxing party of Australian politics.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McGrath, first supplementary.
Thank you. The idea from the taxpayer-funded Talkfest that millions of Australians, including vulnerable pensioners and retirees, could be forced to pay a tax for having an empty bedroom in their house has caused significant concern amongst the Australian community. Why won't the Prime Minister join the coalition and assure the Australian people that his government will not introduce a spare bedroom tax now or ever?
Order. Senator Watt. Order. Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
As the Prime Minister has said, we are implementing the tax policy we took to the last election. That is a tax policy that is about making the tax system more efficient and fairer. But I'll take part of what Senator McGrath said, where he used the phrase significant concern. Significant concern. What that is actually code for is our scare campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
Our scare campaign.
He's got form.
At some point, I think the Australian people would look to the coalition to say, when do you get beyond scare campaigns? When do you actually start to put forward policy that is about our lives? That is about our lives. That is about our aspirations. That is about what we need for our families. When are you going to do that? Because so far, all we have continued to see pre-election and after the election is a series of scare campaigns from those opposite who still fail to have an agenda that relates to the Australian people.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McGrath, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Will the Prime Minister rule out any changes to capital gains tax arrangements in this term of parliament? Yes or no?
Thank you, Senator McGrath. Minister Wong.
Well, we're delivering the tax cuts you oppose.
We are delivering tax cuts. We are delivering the tax cuts you opposed, and we will continue to do that, Senator. I know that you want to engage in a set of scare campaigns. That is, a scare campaign is not policy. And the problem for the coalition, is that they actually don't have anything that speaks to working Australians, anything that speaks to Australian families, anything that speaks to Australians who live in the cities and the suburbs and outer suburbs of this country. That is what we saw during the election campaign, and we still see it. We still see it now. Yet again, more scare campaigns from those opposite. We will deliver the tax policies we took to the election, which are lower taxes than you ever committed to.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone.
Thank you very much, President. My question, President, is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Earlier this afternoon, as colleagues would be aware, the Prime Minister, along with the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Minister for Home Affairs—
Order! Order!
Sorry, I could start again, President.
Just continue on. Thank you, Senator Ciccone.
Thank you. Earlier this afternoon, the Prime Minister, along with the Foreign Minister, the Minister for Home Affairs, the Director-General of ASIO and the Commissioner of the Australian Federal Police advised Australians of outcomes of investigations into the appalling anti-Semitic attacks against our Jewish community since the horrific October 7 attacks. Can the Minister please update the Senate on the statement that was made by the Prime Minister?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Ciccone, for the question. President, we have seen a number of appalling anti-Semitic attacks against Australia's Jewish community since the horrific October 7, 2023 attacks. And this government made clear these attacks have no place in Australia. And we also made clear that ASIO and AFP would investigate as a priority. I can inform the Chamber that ASIO has now gathered incredible intelligence to reach a deeply disturbing conclusion that the Iranian government directed at least 2 of these attacks. The 20th October attack on the Continental Kitchen in Sydney and the 6th December attack on Adass Israel Synagogue in Melbourne. Iran has sought to undermine the cohesion of our community. Iran has done so with acts of aggression that sought to terrify Australians and put Australian lives in danger. There is no doubt that these extraordinary and dangerous acts of aggression, orchestrated by a foreign nation on Australian soil, have crossed a line. That is why the government has declared Iran's ambassador to Australia persona non grata, as well as 3 other Iranian officials. This is the first time Australia has expelled an ambassador in the post-war period. In relation to our embassy in Tehran, where we have had a diplomatic presence since 1968, the government has also taken the step to withdraw Australia's ambassador to Iran. We have suspended the operations of our embassy in Iran for the safety of our officials and for Australia's broader security. I want to publicly acknowledge the DFAT officials who have served at this embassy and their spouses and families for their service and for their fortitude. The government will also move to legislate to list Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, as a terrorist organisation. I want to thank the ASIO Director-General and the AFP Commissioner for the work they and their teams do to keep Australians safe.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone, first supplementary.
Thank you, President, and I thank the Minister for that answer. One of our greatest strengths in Australia is that we are a nation that celebrates cultural diversity as a core element of our national identity. And we do so by respecting one another and the right of all of us to feel safe in our communities and places of worship. What action has the Albanese government taken to combat anti-Semitism and protect Jewish Australians right here in our home?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Australians want to retain our character as a nation that welcomes different religions, different races, different views, but that remains united in respect for each other's humanity and for each other's right to live in peace. And these vile anti-Semitic acts have cut at the heart of who we are and what we stand for. So we understand the profound pain and sorrow they have caused Jewish Australians. We established the Special Operation Everlight with the Australian Federal Police to combat anti-Semitism. We've committed funding towards the replacement and restoration of the Torah scrolls at the Adass Israel Synagogue. We've committed funding for security upgrades to current buildings and to restore the synagogue and community centre. This government remains committed to safeguarding our communities and to protecting Australians from hate and from harm. Our message is clear. We stand against anti-Semitism and we stand against violence.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone, second supplementary.
Thank you again, President, and thanks, Minister. It is the case that Iran has been acting with its proxies to destabilise countries in its region and beyond. How has the Albanese government been acting to make clear that Iran's conduct in the international community is unacceptable?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. The Albanese government has taken stronger action on Iran than any previous Australian government. We have sanctioned 200 Iranian-linked persons and entities, including almost 100 IRGC-linked individuals and entities. We are at the forefront of efforts to remove Iran from the Commission for the Status of Women. We co-sponsored the successful Human Rights Council resolution establishing an independent investigation into human rights violations in Iran. We have long known that Iran and its proxies try to destabilise countries in its region and beyond. I think Iran's dangerous attempts to divide our community underline why the government has been so determined to work to keep our community united. We reject any attempt to smear Australians of Iranian background, just as we do not tolerate anti-Semitism in this country. We want to make sure that we retain the unity and harmony and respect that defines Australian society.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Yesterday, the Prime Minister, who you represent in this chamber, Senator Wong, announced that the Home Guarantee Scheme would be expanded and now it will be uncapped and no longer means-tested. Can the Minister please explain why the Albanese government has decided to allow the children of billionaires to use taxpayer dollars to insure their first houses?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Interview to do up there, mate. You haven't got time to do your subs.
Order. Senator Watt.
Well, did she call me? Sorry.
I did call you, Senator
sorry, I
Wong.
didn't.
And there does... Senator Bragg, you've asked a question.
Yeah, good of you to finish.
Minister Wong.
Well, Senator Bragg, can I first say I'm not sure, I don't know many kids of billionaires, but I would have thought they would hardly be the ones that would be focused on this kind of deposit. Or otherwise there's a big issue in the family, I reckon. But the point I'd make, Senator, I think we all find it quite difficult to take seriously your criticisms of this policy, which is about trying to enable more first home buyers to access the market, when you are standing in the way of more houses. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Like, you are standing in the way of more houses in this country. So you have this bizarre position that Senator Bragg, where on the one hand you say we don't actually want people to be helped into the market by focusing on some mythical billionaire's family, but all of the real people who are trying to get into the market that this policy supports, you just pretend to ignore them. Meanwhile, you stand opposed to more housing supply in this country, which is the key to affordability. Does anybody actually understand Senator Bragg's housing policy? Senator Bragg, your housing policy appears to be. Let's make sure we have fewer houses for Australians, and then let's make sure we complain about it. That's your position. That's the Senator Bragg coalition's housing policy. We'll stop houses, then we'll complain about there not being enough houses. Well, I think the Australian people are onto you, and they know who is listening to their concerns and who is acting on their concerns and who is not.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg. Order. Senator Bragg, first supplementary.
Thank you very much. Labor's expansion of the Home Guarantee Scheme does put taxpayers on the hook for every single mortgage which is going to be subject to these arrangements. As you know, there is no means test. So can the government please advise what the Treasury is advising the contingent liability would be, which taxpayers are now on the hook for?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful time in Senate estimates going through the costings on this, and I look forward to how Senator Gallagher will respond to it. But I would make a few points to you. This is a plan that will save first-home buyers, and this is who we're talking about. Well, how many billionaires do you know are worried about their first houses? Oh, actually, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. I think we know some. Well, we don't design policy for billionaires. That might be how you think about it.
Order. Order. Senator Bragg.
Point of order, President. The question was very specific. It was laser-like in relation.
Thank you, Senator Bragg.
In relation to contingent liability.
Thank you, Senator Bragg. I'm not sure I completely agree with laser-like, but order. Order. Minister Wong, as Senator Watt. Minister Wong is entitled to take interjections. Now, I have been trying very hard to get order in this place, but seemingly I've not been successful, and the minister is entitled to take those interjections. So if you want your laser-like question answered, get your front bench to keep quiet. Minister Wong. Minister Wong.
Thank you. President, I'd make two points. First is this is a plan which will save first-home buyers about $1.5 billion in potential mortgage insurance over the next 12 months. So there's a billion-dollar figure. And these are first-home buyers. The second point I would make is that I'm advised by Senator Gallagher that obviously the liability only arises on default. The scheme has an extremely low default rate of less than 0.003%.
Has expired. Senator Bragg, second supplementary.
Okay, thank you. This is another very clear question, demanding a very clear answer, I hope. So, industry estimates suggest the contingent liability could be as high as $60 billion. Has the government modelled this liability, and if so, what exactly does your analysis show?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
2 points. The first is this is a robust program that's operated for a long time, and this Commonwealth has underwritten this scheme for almost 7 years, issuing almost 160,000 guarantees, and in that time only 5 guarantees have paid out. So I know this is another scare campaign that they want to run. But the second point I'd make, you talked about clarity. You talked about laser-like clarity. Well, you know what is really clear? Senator Bragg disallowing tax assessments that would provide for more houses. I know
Minister
that's sensitive for you, but you are standing in the way of more houses.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
Just a point of order on relevance in relation to the question was quite clear about asking about the contingent liability, and I'd be grateful if the minister could address that part of the question. It was quite specific.
The minister is being relevant to the question, Senator Bragg, and I'll continue to listen carefully. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, with respect, President, I think it is relevant that you don't want more houses built.
Yeah.
You've built 17. I think it's relevant that you don't want more rental properties for Australians. I think it's relevant that you complain about housing prices whilst opposing measures that will in fact try and deal with supply, which is key to housing affordability. I think that is called accountability. That is called accountability. And so we on this side make no apology for the fact that we will shine a light on your refusal to support more supply.
Senator Shoebridge.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to the Foreign Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, in the last 24 hours, Israel has conducted what's known as a double-tap attack on Nasser Hospital in Gaza, striking first with a first military strike and then hitting the facility again as journalists and rescue workers rush to the scene to record the latest crime and to help those injured in the initial attack. Minister, will your government make it clear and call this latest obscene action from the Israeli military a war crime?
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you to Senator Shoebridge. This is a horrific attack, and we condemn it, and we all should condemn it. Hospitals, health workers, civilians should be protected under international law. What I've said very clearly is Prime Minister Netanyahu should heed our call, the call of the international community, and agree to a ceasefire. It is also the same call that his military is advising. that his military is advising. This war must stop. In relation to your question, targeting hospitals is a breach of international law.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Shoebridge, first supplementary.
Minister, thank you for that clarification. It is very clear that Prime Minister Netanyahu and his extremist security and war cabinet are not heeding those calls, either calls you've made or calls that any other country has made to date. So will you now commit to applying the same sanctions regime against Israel that you have applied against Russia for its illegal war, its illegal occupation and its war crimes?
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Minister Wong.
Thank you. As the senator would know, we have already applied sanctions on Israel. We have already applied sanctions, including on 2 Israeli ministers.
Order.
We have worked with others in the international community to apply pressure, and you have seen Prime Minister Netanyahu's response. We all want this war to stop. We call on Israel to stop this war. Prime Minister Netanyahu should heed the advice of the IDF as well as the calls of the international community and agree to a ceasefire.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Shoebridge, second supplementary.
Minister, you repeatedly say that Prime Minister Netanyahu should heed those calls. He is not. And he's directing the military to continue these attacks, including using F-35 fighter jets, which can only remain in the air because of critical parts, including the mechanism that opens the bomb bay doors that are supplied by Australian industry, and that your government continues to permit to be sent to Israel to be part of the genocide and the killing and the bombing. Why won't you stop sending F-35 parts? And please do not repeat the non-lethal parts statement.
For asking the question has expired. Minister Wong.
Well, I've responded to this question so many times I refer you to the multiple previous answers, but I would say this to everyone in this Senate, including Senator Shoebridge. I would have thought we all want the war to end. That's what this government is working for. That is what we are advocating for. We want to see peace in the Middle East.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Dowling.
Thank you, President. This is not my first speech, but it's my first question to the Minister representing the Minister for Housing, Senator Ayres. The Albanese Labor government was re-elected with a mandate to build more homes and make it easier for Australians to buy them. But in my home state—
Minister Wong.
There is a courtesy that is usually extended to the first question, Senator McKenzie.
Just before Senator Wong rose to her feet, I was going to remind the chamber the senator has advised the chamber it is his first question. In fact, all senators should be afforded silence when they ask their questions, and in particular those that ask a first question. Please continue, Senator Dowling.
Thank you, President. But in my home state of Tasmania, I often hear from young people who, despite working hard, find it impossible to save the 20% deposit they need to buy their first home. How is the government making it easier for more Australians to buy their first home?
Thank you, Senator Dowling. Minister Ayres.
I'm learning, President. I only get up when you tell me to get up. I want to thank Senator Dowling for that question. As he said, it's not his first speech, but his first speech is this evening, and I'll be here. I'm very much looking forward to it. It is a familiar story. Young Australians all over Australia, including in Tasmania, working hard and trying to save for a deposit, but home ownership only moves further out of reach for them. For many young people, it has felt, until the last election, impossible for them to buy their first home without help from their parents or without support. Saving up to 20% of the price of a house for a deposit is a massive hurdle for young Australians, particularly if you're already renting year after year, paying somebody else's mortgage. That's why the Albanese Labor government promised that all Australians will be able to buy their first home with a deposit of just 5%. President, that will be the case for every first home buyer in Australia from October 1 this year. That is the Albanese government delivering on what it promised to do in the election and delivering early for young Australians. 37 days from today, home ownership will be achievable again for young Australians. This is about fairness, making sure everyone has the chance to buy their own place, to buy their own home. It's not the totality of the government's measures, but it's an important measure, and it sends a message, a practical message of hope for young Australians.
Thank you, Senator Ayres. Senator Dowling, first supplementary.
President, increasing the supply of housing is a priority for the Albanese Labor government and central to the government's $43 billion housing agenda. Why will this ensure the housing market works better for all Australians, especially renters and first home buyers?
Thank you, Senator Dowling. Minister Ayres.
Well, Senator, thank you very much for that supplementary question. And what you can see from the sort of caterwauling from down here and there is that they haven't learnt, and they haven't learnt from what happened in the last election. We are about delivering for young Australians and Australians who are trying to find their own home, whether it's to rent or whether it's to buy. And I'll get to you in a moment, Sunshine. Like your contribution.
Minister Ayres, I'm not sure who that was directed to, but it was inappropriate, so please withdraw.
Sunshine.
Senator Ayres, please withdraw.
I will withdraw unreservedly. It is.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Could I seek your ruling on whether a withdrawal is sufficient or an apology may not be more appropriate?
Senator Ruston. Senator Ruston, I wish there was no name-calling in this place because it's disrespectful. The Minister Ayres has withdrawn. Minister, please continue.
Really dragging us back to the dark ages of housing policy. We know what demand-side-only housing policy meant. It meant rising prices. Senator Bragg said it was possible. This was probably on Sky last night. It was possible the approach he helped to craft did too much on the demand side and could have pushed up prices. The relentless negativity, and I'll come to the rest of it in a tick, I suppose.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Dowling. Senator McKenzie, honestly, Senator McKenzie, you do not have the call. And if you can't listen in silence, leave the chamber. Senator Dowling, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Albanese Labor government has committed to making it easier for Australians to rent. Industry expects the government's build-to-rent legislation will deliver 80,000 new rental properties. What challenges does the government face in implementing this program?
Thank you, Senator Dowling. Minister Ayres.
Well, thank you very much. Senator McKenzie says I should practice, and maybe I should. What I do is I just answer. The questions, and it's a very good question from Senator Dowling. Build-to-rent will deliver 80,000 new high-quality homes just for renters. Us delivering on what we said we would do. But is it the same? Senator Bragg said this was a nightmare, a foreign investor tax cut. But it's the same guy who said everyone needs to support the supply of new housing. It's an urgent issue for young people, and it's an intergenerational fairness one as well. Well, this is the same Senator Bragg who later today has a motion to disallow build-to-rent. He was going to do it last night, but this is what's happened to the moderates in the New South Wales Liberals. He didn't want to do it because he wanted to go on Sky. to shoot his mouth off with more negativity
thank you, Minister
about
Ayres.
housing policy.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Order. Order. We have now moved on. Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Specialist Disability Accommodation, SDA, delivers specialised housing support for Australians of very high needs and is designed to attract private market investment. Under the scheme, the government asked private investors to build small-scale customised houses, and the government would pay investors about $110,000 per year for each eligible person who moved in. But as we learned from ABC's Four Corners program last night, the scheme is being rorted by dodgy developers ripping off mum and dad investors. These Australians thought they were doing the right thing, the ethical thing, and they ended up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process, while many disabled people still don't have suitable houses to live in. Minister, first of all, how many SDA houses has been built, and how many of these houses are actually being unoccupied at this point in time?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President, and thanks for the question, Senator Lambie. It's an important subject. So, can I address the first part of your question, which is that my heart really does go out to those investors who have had a tough time here. And these were people, as you indicated, who thought they were making an ethical investment and who in some cases have seen their life savings disappear. There are unfortunately some people active in this market and in other investment markets that come to mum and dad investors and they give them information that simply isn't true. And in all cases, whether it's in this market or others, investors should contact ASIC if they're concerned that an investment scheme has engaged in misleading behaviour or misappropriated investor funds. My message to mum and dad investors out there who are looking to invest in specialist disability accommodation is that if someone says something that sounds like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Specialist disability accommodation investments are not government-backed. Occupancy is not guaranteed. The NDIS seeks to give participants choice and control. That includes choice and control over their living arrangements. And so when the NDIS funds SDA for eligible participants, those participants are able to choose the accommodation that works for them in a location where they want to live. And unsurprisingly, NDIS participants, like most other Australians, want to be able to choose the housing and the service options that work for them, close to community, close to services, close to supports. So the Four Corners program is really important, and I want to thank them and acknowledge the work they've done, focused on specific providers and practices, because that's what good public interest journalism looks like.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Lambie, first supplementary.
Thank you. The NDIA had oversight of the SDA rollout. But these empty homes, over 1,000 of them, according to the ABC, are being built in new suburbs far from services. I noticed that you just said close to community and supports. That's not what's happening. So what consultation protocols are actually in place that make sure these homes are appropriate for disabled Australians, that they are built in the locations close to the services that they require?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President, and thanks, Senator Lambie. So it's very important to be clear about this, Senator. The NDIA doesn't build or own or commission specialist disability accommodation. The upfront investment of buying or building an SDA dwelling is borne by the owner or the investor. And investment in this market, like in any other market, carries risk. And so prospective investors really should seek independent legal and financial advice, and they should really carefully assess the information that's being provided to them by people who are supporting or the proponents of these investment schemes. So the NDI's role is to create a market that is sustainable, that provides genuine options and choice for participants, and ensures continuity of supports for eligible participants.
I thank you, Minister. Senator Lambie, second supplementary.
Well, I see, and I hope the Minister accepts now that giving the market free rein isn't working. And will she commit to properly regulating the SDA scheme to keep the dodgy developers out and protect the mum and dad investors who probably, by the way of doing this and not doing it properly, she has lost along the way? We have a problem here. Certainly not going to just sit here and talk gabble. Are we going to take some action and do something about it, and what action are we taking?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister McAllister.
Thanks, Senator Lambie. So responsibility for managing investments and making sure that investors get accurate information about prospective investments for them lies with ASIC. And ASIC has been taking action in relation to some of the cases that are before them and that you saw in the program last night. The NDIA, of course, wants people in this market to have good information, and so on. Earlier this year, in July, updated information was provided about SDA investment considerations for investors. That advice directs investments to government agencies that can give advice or support to resolve issues that may come about for people who've invested in SDA. That's work that's been undertaken in consultation with the Commission, with ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, and the ACCC. We want all of our markets, this one and a whole range of other investment markets, to work well, to be transparent and conducted honestly in the interests of investors.
Thank you, Minister. Senator David Pocock.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister for Industry, Innovation and Science, Minister Ayres. The CSIRO appropriation as a percentage of GDP has fallen by more than 40% over the past 20 years. Why is the Albanese government continuing to reduce funding for the CSIRO in real terms?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Ayres.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Pocock. Well, the government the government absolutely values and puts at the centre of our approach to science the valuable role of the CSIRO and the work that it does in terms of scientific research and applied industrial research. This government has made no changes to the CSIRO's base funding. Decisions on staffing and prioritisation, of course, are a matter for the CSIRO's board and management. They know that the CSIRO making sure that it continues to perform its function critical as we approach some of the big technology challenges that the modern age presents Australia with. That is absolutely vital that the CSIRO stays on task, properly resourced, and I, of course, am working very closely with them around those questions. We value the contribution that CSIRO scientists and CSIRO staff make, and we want that work that the CSIRO does to be sustainable in the long term. I note that in the recent budget, this government provided an additional $45 million on top of that base funding to help maintain the CSIRO's world-class research capability as they focus on their role, their footprint around Australia, and making sure that they are in a position to discharge that important public function in a way that is focused upon the science priorities that Australia needs to meet as a nation.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. I think it's shameful to see a Labor government starving the CSIRO of funding. 1,000 Canberrans work for the CSIRO. It's an institution we care deeply about. In the CSIRO's portfolio budget statement, we can see a drop in the average staffing level of 500 jobs. And based on the numbers over the forward estimates, it looks like there are more cuts to come. At a time where we need science innovation more than ever, why is the CSIRO losing people?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Ayres.
Well, Senator Pocock, I'd just say in terms of that question, that kind of florid rhetoric sounds more like Senator McGrath than the normally sober questions that we get from Senator Pocock. Making those sorts of claims is unhelpful in terms of the regard that this parliament should have for the CSIRO's role.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Pocock.
Sorry, President, just a point of order. I'd love an answer. Relevance. I don't see how a lecture is relevant.
Minister Wong.
Well, President, if Senator Pocock chooses to make a put political rhetoric into his supplementary, then he's going to get a response in kind, and the minister is entitled. No, I'm sorry.
Order.
I apologise.
Order.
Point of order. On the point of order, if Senator Pocock makes a political statement, he's going to get a political answer. He chose to make a political statement, self-evidently, presumably for social media, and he's getting a response in kind.
Senator Pocock.
Just on the point of order, my political statement was grounded in the fact that CSIRO hasn't had an increase.
Senator Pocock, you are making a statement now. Please resume your seat.
But that's what Minister Wong does all the time.
Senator. Order. Senator Pocock, the minister is being relevant to your question. Minister Ayres, please continue.
And of course, Senator Pocock, as I said in my response to your primary question, base funding for the CSIRO has not altered, and this government has respect for the role that the CSIRO plays now and the role that it must play in the science and technological research that is required for our future.
Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Minister, in Abundance, which I understand a number of ministers have read, Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson talk about the need for nations to back abundance, not scarcity, if they are to thrive. Is the reduction in CSIRO's funding in real terms, because you're just keeping it level, reflective of an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Ayres.
Well, I don't want to be the guy who talks down, no doubt, what is a very substantial contribution to public policy debate in Mr. Klein's book. I haven't read it. It's a bit too pop culture in 2025 for me. I'm focused on the kind of reading that's focused upon the technological challenges that we should be focused upon, delivering an industrial response for Australia that must be science-led, that must tackle the challenges of energy and climate change. And I was hoping for some energy questions from the coalition on this day of all days today, focused on those challenges: water challenges, agriculture challenges, food sustainability and food security challenges, defence challenges. That is CSIRO at the centre of that. And they will make changes to their priorities from time to time in the national interest.
Has expired. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister for Women and Government Services, Minister Gallagher. In a letter from Services Australia dated July 2, 2025, it confirms that the stillborn baby payment of $4,326.57 is available in cases of intentional abortion where a pregnancy has reached 20 weeks or the child weighs 400 grams. While One Nation supports the stillborn baby payment for legitimate and heartbreaking cases, Minister, why is this payment being made to women who deliberately abort a baby?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I know that there is a number of steps that are taken before a family that's been affected by stillbirth are eligible for that payment. It includes a number of different pieces of documentation, but that payment, supported by that appropriate documentation, will be paid in those circumstances. It includes, in often quite traumatic circumstances, as you can imagine, evidence of the stillbirth from people who were attending the birth. That is required before the payments are made, associated with other documentation that's required by Services Australia to make that payment provided. We accept that in the case of stillbirth, it is a very traumatic situation for anyone who is involved in that. And I think even applying for that payment at times can be quite traumatic, and so we've looked at ways to make sure that that is as seamless as possible. But like every other payment that's required and provided by Services Australia, those payments are made in accordance with the law and in accordance with guidance and evidence that those payments are appropriate. It's that for whether it's job seeker, whether it's single parenting payment, whether it's PPL. And in the case of the loss of a baby through pregnancy loss, those payments will be made when that is supported by evidence that's required by Services Australia.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson, first supplementary.
Well, Minister, you never answered a question, which was, why is it made to women who deliberately abort a baby? Minister, this policy risks creating a financial incentive for late-term abortion where Australian women can terminate a pregnancy up to the day before birth. They can terminate a pregnancy up to the day before birth, allowing women to receive a lump sum payment and access to paid parental leave of up to $22,754. Why is the Albanese government funding the murder of healthy babies, some left to die in a kidney dish for up to 5 hours?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. The time for asking the question has expired. Minister Gallagher.
Well, the answer to that question is the same as to my earlier question. There are laws in this country around termination of pregnancy. They are laws that are regulated by the states and territories, and I support those laws. One of the reasons I got into politics was to ensure that women had the right to make choices about their own reproductive health. I accept that some people disagree with my views on that and with laws in states and territories that provide the regulatory arrangements around that. Now, in relation to the stillborn baby payment, as I said, and as it relates to other payments, including PPL, evidence is required, documentation is required before those payments are made. In relation to the stillborn baby payment, that includes certification from someone attending the birth, a health professional attending the birth, that the birth was of a stillborn child. That is the documentation that's made or required in order to receive that payment.
Minister. Senator Hanson, second supplementary.
Minister, when you talk about stillborn births, let me inform the people, the public of this nation, that they are actually injecting a needle into the heart of the baby before it's born. Therefore, it is born stillborn. Minister, will you and the Albanese government work with One Nation to close this appalling loophole and ensure these taxpayer-funded payments are reserved for genuine cases of stillbirth, not for barbaric late-term abortions carried out by choice?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, my answer to this is, as it was to the earlier two questions, I have not seen any, and I have not had raised with me outside of this chamber right now the concerns that Senator Hanson raises with me. But in order for a stillborn baby payment to be paid, what is required is a paper-based form from the hospital containing a doctor and midwife's declaration that it is used as a verification of the stillbirth. That is what is required to get that payment.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cox.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Environment and Water, Senator Watt. 5 years ago, the then Environment Minister and now Opposition Leader Susan Lee commissioned a review by eminent academic and businessman Graham Samuel into Australia's environment laws. The Samuel review made a number of recommendations about improving the nation's laws to better protect the environment and improve productivity within the approvals process. How is the Albanese Labor government progressing these long overdue reforms, and can you provide an update to the planned timing of this legislation?
Thank you, Senator Cox. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks Senator Cox, who I know is working hard to deliver real environmental reform as a member of the Australian Labor Party. Reforming Australia's environmental protection laws are a key priority for the Albanese Labor government. I've been consulting extensively over the past 3 months on these reforms, holding more than 40 meetings, roundtables and forums right across the country with everyone from state and territory governments and environmental groups to mining companies, property developers, renewable energy proponents and more. And in those meetings I've consistently heard that we need to move quickly to reform these laws, as delays mean holding up investment and more environmental destruction. That's why today I announced that the Albanese government is bringing forward the introduction of this legislation to the parliament by 6 months, beginning the process of overhauling Australia's environmental laws this side of Christmas. This is in direct response to the very clear consensus that we saw at last week's Economic Roundtable that these reforms are vital for our environment and for business. What is clear is that these laws are utterly broken. Our environment needs greater protection, and we will not meet our national priorities like delivering more homes and renewable energy unless we overhaul these laws. Our reforms, built on Graham Samuel's recommendations, will deliver stronger environmental protections, faster and more efficient approvals and assessments for projects, and more transparency when it comes to environmental decision-making. So these are really vital reforms for the nation, and we invite the support of the Coalition and the Greens to deliver them. It's worth remembering that in 2021, then Environment Minister Susan Ley supported environmental reform, saying, quote, "If we do not get the process moving, it will end up hurting both the environment and the economy. Unless we pass the bills, we will fall behind, and we will fall behind on environmental protection." I trust this remains the position of the opposition leader, and I sincerely hope it's the position of the Coalition Party room.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Cox, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. I welcome the Minister's response that ensuring Australia's environment laws are fit for purpose and working to protect the environment is a key priority for the Albanese Labor government. Why is it important for business and the environment to reform these laws?
Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Cox. Well, I've seen that business groups, including the Business Council of Australia and the Minerals Council of Australia, along with environmental groups like Greenpeace, have backed our announcement today that we are bringing forward these reforms. And while on this side of the chamber we are united in protecting the environment, those sitting over there are still debating whether climate change is real. At the weekend, we had the extraordinary moment at the LNP Queensland Convention where federal LNP members led the charge to dump net zero. We had Senator Canavan there saying he had to pinch himself, he was that happy, and he was saying there were just 5 hands in favour of net zero out of 600 members present, and saying that any leader of our political parties would want to be in tune with our members. I wonder if one of those 5 hands belonged to Senator Scarr, because yesterday on radio Senator Scarr said, quote, "The views expressed at conventions aren't binding on the parliamentary party," and that it was a resolution against net zero mandates. It's a bit more nuanced than what certain other people have said.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Cox, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Albanese government remains united in its commitment to deliver on EPBC reform, action on climate change and emission reductions in order to protect and safeguard our precious environment. How important is policy certainty to ensure confidence in private sector investment in our economy?
Thank you, Senator Cox. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Cox. And as you know, for years the Australian business community has been crying out for policy certainty around the environment and energy so they can plan their investments accordingly. Instead, we all remember they got 22 different policies from the Coalition's wasted decade in office, and apparently now, at the urging of Senator Cash in the Coalition party room today, they are about to get another one. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I always thought that one of the KPIs of a Senate leader would be that they would back in their actual party leader. I mean, old-fashioned, I know, but instead of Senator Cash leading support for the opposition leader, we have Senator Cash leading a rabble within the Coalition, leading the brains trust of Senator Canavan, Senator Antic, Tony Passon,
Minister
Terry
White,
Young.
I'm going to ask you to withdraw that comment.
Brains trust? I withdraw. The collection of geniuses, Senator Canavan, Senator Antic, Tony Passon, Terry Young and Lou O'Brien. That's who Senator Cash is backing in. She's not backing in the opposition leader, Ms Lee. In fact, she's working to bring her down.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKenzie.
My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Labor's 3-day taxpayer-funded talkfest delivered nothing for families. No cut to power bills, no relief at the checkout, no plan to arrest our slide in living standards, but it did open the door to more taxes on Australians' savings, their superannuation accounts, small businesses, even spare rooms in the family home. Why is it that when Labor runs out of money, Minister, they come after Australians' hard-earned income and their retirement savings?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Gallagher.
I know this is thank you, President. I know it is a foreign concept to those opposite that you would actually bring people together and sit down in a room and talk about some of the challenges facing our country, in particular in relation to the economic roundtable around the productivity challenge, which, as we know, the worst decade of that was seen under the former government, when they did nothing about these issues. They didn't do anything about climate, and they're still arguing about it. You didn't do anything about housing, and you're still arguing about it. You're trying to get rid of our build-to-rent this afternoon. And this government takes a different approach. We take a different approach, which is to bring people around the table and talk to them about some of those challenges. Now, I would ask you, there were a number...
You're not enjoying it much over there.
Order! Order across the chamber. Minister, please.
Thank you. Senator McKenzie said that the government hadn't done anything to help families with cost of living. Well, what is arguing for a pay rise? What is making sure the superannuation guarantee rose to 12%? What's the extension of PPL, all of the investment in housing, the 30% off home batteries, the energy bill relief that we're putting in, the tripling of the bulk billing, the more urgent care centres, the 20,000 instant asset write-off, the HECS debt reduction, the new Medicare urgent care clinics that are starting. All of those are measures. But while we're implementing all of those, guess what? We'd like to bring people together on some of the other issues facing the economy, including productivity, and see if there's an agreed way to work together to address some of them. And yeah, you weren't there because you don't want to be part of the discussion. You call it a three-day talk fest. We actually got through and found areas of consensus to do further work on.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator McKenzie, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Business groups have warned that higher taxes will drive down investment and productivity, making living standards worse for Australian families, not better. Do you agree that increasing taxes will only drive down Australian families' living standards even further?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Gallagher.
Yeah, I mean, the gall of these people over here, honestly, to give us a lecture about tax, when they went to the last election saying they were going to increase taxes on everybody. You were going to increase it in relation to EV vehicles. You didn't support the HECS debt reductions. You were going to raise income tax. I mean, seriously, all of a sudden, the opposition that went seeking to be in government and their major policy was to increase taxes, now is so concerned about what we might do.
Please resume your seat. Senator McKenzie.
On relevance, Madam President, my question went to the fall in living standards and the impact that their increased taxes will have on that.
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. The minister is being relevant to your question.
In relation to some of those other areas that are up the round table, we discussed trade, we discussed better regulation, we discussed approvals and speeding up approvals, building more homes more quickly, making AI a national priority, looking at how we attract investment, building skilled and adaptable workforce, and modernising government services, which I'm pleased to do, and at the same time ensuring that we are addressing those areas of need for all Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKenzie, second supplementary.
Minister, why do you continue to refuse to rule out tax increases for hard-working Australian families? You continue and continue with your talking points, and yet you refuse to rule out, as have all the ministers who've stood up today to coalition questions, refuse to rule out the spare bedroom tax, the tax changes for hard-working families. Will you rule out increasing taxes?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. As I said yesterday, we were clear about our tax policies that we took to the election, and we are implementing them. In relation to some other, if I can address tax more generally, we won't be taking your policy of higher personal income taxes or the abolition of the production tax credits or the abolition of the EV concession or the abolition of build to rent. You also wanted higher student debts, bigger mortgages for people, higher power bills, more expensive training and higher childcare fees. That was your policy, which was all about increasing taxes and increasing costs on millions of Australians. You put it out there, people had a look at it, and do you know what they said? They said, we don't like that. We don't like your plan, which was to increase taxes. We have our tax plan. We went to the election with it. That's the tax plan that we will implement.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.